The shooting range. In this episode, Pages of History, the story of the mad Canadian named Beurling, Part 2. Challenge. Is it possible to capture a point in random battles flying a helicopter? And Metal Beasts, a swift German boat known as the Albatros. The guest of this episode of The Shooting Range is the Type 143 Albatros boat from Germany, located at BR 4.0. It combines enviable speed with firepower, which makes it great in battles against any light-armored enemy ships. The main armament of the boat consists of two OTO Melara units, one in the bow and one in the stern. Also, there are a couple of torpedo tubes in the stern launching the sealed torpedoes. Thanks to its powerful engines, the Type 143 can speed up to about 40 knots forward and 21.5 knots in reverse. The Albatros is also radar-equipped with a 10-kilometer wide range. As for the armor, it's nothing to rely on. It's only wood and metal, thin enough to be pierced by even heavy-caliber machine guns. This boat will be the most effective at medium and long distances. Thanks to the excellent projectile ballistics with rapid-firing weapons, it needs only mere seconds to set fire to a poorly protected opponent, or simply shatter any flimsy boat with a wooden hull to pieces. Even aviation won't be safe. The guns elevate up to 85 degrees, making it easy to shoot at low-flying targets. Detecting and locking onto them, now that's a task for the radar, which has a tracking view of almost 360 degrees when it comes to destroying air targets. You can use the HE rounds with variable time fuses. This AA kit allows the Albatros to also act as a sea-based anti-aircraft gun to protect its allies from threats raining down from above. As for fighting its own kind, well, there are a number of nuances. In order to unleash your full firepower, you'll have to turn one of your sides to your opponent, since the cannons located in the stern cannot effectively fire forwards. This will significantly complicate some of your close combat situations, because putting your side under enemy fire is a rather risky move. Also, note that continuous firing will sooner or later overheat your weapons, and they might jam. On the other hand, thanks to its mobility, the boat can be one of the first to find itself in the most important positions, and also easily capture points. The main thing to remember is you should always have a retreat plan, and avoid confronting several opponents at the same time. And of course, don't get involved in battles against destroyers. The light-armored Albatros won't even last a few seconds in such a fight. The brave test pilot and the famous Italian ace Furio Nicolo Doglio was, well, furious. This damn Malta! They bombed it so hard that there was nothing left to rebuild. They blocked it so effectively that you couldn't sneak a crumb of bread or a drop of gasoline or a single rifle cartridge inside. And now there are Italian pilots, and as of late, the Germans as well, trembling in fear when all they have to do is finish off this completely doomed chunk of rock. But all they actually do is fearfully whisper stories about some great ace who had broken through to Malta with a group of English pilots in Spitfires. And according to rumors, he's capable of shooting an aircraft down by simply frowning upon it. What nonsense, right? But the facts can't be denied. On July 6, 1942, during the Italians' raid on Malta, this dude shot down the lead aircraft of the bomber's formation, the precious newest Z-1007, so quickly that the pilot didn't even have time to call for help. And then, when the others started panicking, he destroyed 2 of the Folgores, and none of the pilots even managed to see this Englishman opening fire. The fighters just kind of exploded in the air on their own, and a few hours later, in the same sector of the sky, he killed the celebrated German ace Anton Engels. Engels and his wingman were in excellent newest Friedrichs. They noticed a lonely Spitfire from afar and rushed to him. Instead of fleeing, it went for a frontal attack, alone, against 2 Friedrichs. And when he's still almost 800 meters away, the Engels fighter just fell apart, and the squadron that he protected threw bombs into the Mediterranean Sea and turned back to Sicily with a dive, in complete panic. According to the most moderate estimates, every day this British, or as we very well know, Canadian pilot named George Burling victimized at least 1 Italian or German plane. Sometimes there were even 2 in one day. The panic in the ranks of the Axis pilots grew, and Doglio realized that he had to act quickly. And the source of this calamity itself was just on cloud 9. At long last, he ended up in a place where you could just fly and shoot down enemies, and any sort of initiative was appreciated. So the first thing Beurling did was ditching all the tracers off his belts. With his phenomenal vision, he could instantly determine the distance to the target and take the lead just by sight. The Italians and the Germans couldn't even understand that they were being attacked. The time went on to July 27th. The day when the Axis pilots in Sicily scheduled another massive raid on Malta. By that time, Beurling's score had already exceeded 20 grounded planes. That day, Furio Niccolò Doglio personally led his squadron into battle, longing for a meeting with the elusive enemy ace. Even before they reached Malta, they saw a whole Spitfire squadron appearing on the horizon. From a distance, they all looked the same. But Doglio knew he was there. He only needed to determine which one it was. His behavior would give him away sooner or later, and sure enough, 1 Spitfire flew out of the formation, completely ignoring the squadron's maneuver, and rushed straight to the leading Italian bomber. It could only be Beurling. Doglio darted to intercept, and once again the madness ensued. The Spitfire instantly lost interest in the bomber and rushed straight towards Doglio's fighter. Already familiar with this tactic, the Italian ace went for a canopy roll, evading the Spitfire's invisible burst. But his wingman's Macchi had no time to follow suit. The shocked Doglio slowed the maneuver only for a moment, but it was that exact moment that Beurling took aim. An invisible burst pierced the cockpit, and the uncontrollably tumbling Italian fighter rushed to the ground. Then there was even more panic, screams, and bombs thrown away, all followed by an erratic escape under the Spitfire's attacks, taking down 1 plane after another. And Beurling himself shot down 2 more Messerschmitts that day and, in his own words, had a wonderful time. Finally, no one was stopping him from fighting by his own rules. Today, we have an unusual and quite a different challenge. As you know, helicopters that only need a small patch of ground for takeoff and landing can capture points, in theory. But it's not at all difficult to test this in custom battles. But will it be possible to do the same in reality, with living opponents? Let's figure it out. Random battles. Tank RB. Here we go. Our rivals will be the actual players, and they have no intention to cut us any slack. They won't even have a clue that we're conducting an experiment here, and they really want to win. For this challenge, we will need a maneuverable helicopter with a low BR. For example, why don't we take the British Wasp? Its 4-point undercarriage can come in quite handy in the event of a hard landing. In the first few battles, we only came across a mode with simply 1 capture point. It was absolutely hopeless to even try capturing it in front of the enemy team. The end is quite predictable. But we try again and again. We've got onto Wallonia domination mode. The chances here are much higher. We fly to Point Alpha. Okay, there don't seem to be any opponents in sight, so we can try to quietly land. After a successful landing, we begin the capture. This challenge is easier than it seemed at first glance. Well, perhaps not. Just a couple of seconds before the capture completes, an enemy BMP-1 destroys us with a well-aimed shot. Let's try again. Up next, we land in Normandy. We take off and try to play as accurately as possible, controlling the map and tracking all potential threats. We find an enemy BMP-2, very inconvenient, placed near the point. We destroy it so as not to go to the hangar even before we land. Landing, okay. Let's try to capture this one. But we're immediately interrupted by a T-55's projectile. No problem. We'll keep trying. Next, we get the night version of the American desert, battle mode. The capturing process here is, of course, very long, but there is a chance that the enemy won't notice us under the cover of darkness. We reach the point without any unnecessary adventures, carefully land in complete darkness, trying not to hit neighboring buildings. The enemy still doesn't see us. The capture starts, and it seems that this time luck finally smiles at us. Nobody is nearby. But what's that? Darn it! Someone from the enemy team caused an artillery strike. Maybe we'll luck out again and the projectiles won't hit us? Alas, this is not the case. One of the rounds grazes the fragile helicopter ever so slightly, but our machine doesn't need a lot of damage, does it? Home sweet hangar once again. We make more attempts, and more, and again, to no avail. Either the mode doesn't suit our needs, or the enemy is a bit too attentive for what we want. Okay, let's change the machine then, and choose the American Huey. It has a low BR, which means that we'll hardly meet any modern air defense systems on the battlefield. The first flights are also unsuccessful, but then we seem to find the right moment. The opponents are dispersed between 2 points, leaving the third one unattended. This is our chance. We fly towards it and rapidly land. The capture starts. But the enemies seem to be busy with their own fights. A little more. Just a little more. Could this attempt finally bring us success? Yes! The in-game statistics confirms a successful capture. Challenge completed. And now, with a feeling of deep satisfaction, we set off to do something pleasant. For example, to answer the questions that you ask in the comments. The first question was sent by a player called Pietro Cardelli. What type of tank has been the most difficult to model into the game due to his characteristics or rarity? One of the most complex to model was, for example, the Israeli Merkava Merc 1. It took a lot of time and effort to figure out its armor and authentically implement all of its nuances in War Thunder. Tiloku asks, will the cannon of ground forces get blocked onto obstacles or even break when hitting obstacles too hard some days? Well, we don't say never, but at this moment, this feature of the game isn't considered to be a mistake. This was, and still is, a completely deliberate decision to make it like that. Making a physically correct barrel isn't hard. Surely, it's a way easier than a lot of the mechanics that we've already implemented. But then, about a third of all tanks would become inoperable even before encountering any enemies. And it doesn't sound promising in terms of interesting gameplay, does it? Then there is a question sent by Sihol-sat Jath Iti Yenon. What vehicle in the game that stay closest to a present day? Talking about ground tech, this is probably the Japanese Type 16 tank destroyer. It was developed in 2007. As for the aviation, the most modern machines are helicopters. Both the Russian Mi-28 and the American Bell AH-1Z Viper were taken into service only in the 2010s. Moving on to this question from Ravandika. How can I control air-to-ground missile in tank-realistic battles? Hi there. Go to Controls, Aircraft, Weaponry, and find the bindings for yaw and pitch axis for aim weapons. If there are none, set them on your own and use those. And the last question for today was written by Thorsgard. When it comes to more supersonic fighters, soon. Keep an eye out for the coming announcements. Once more, guys, that's it for today. You've been watching The Shooting Range by Gaijin Entertainment. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell button so that you don't miss our next videos. Press like if you think that George Burling was just the coolest guy. And then tell us what you think in the comments below. So, see you in a week's time.